Let's clear up education. Democrat candidate to replace George Santos supports Don't Say Gay law. Voters in New York's 3rd Congressional District could face a less than ideal choice to replace disgraced former Representative George Santos, a Democrat who voiced support for Florida's Don't Say Gay law, and a Republican who has been convicted of participating in the January 6th Capitol insurrection. A special election to fill the now vacant seat after Santos was expelled from Congress last week will be held on February 13th. Democratic Party bosses hoping to flip the swing district announced their candidate, former Representative Tom Suozzi, Representative Gregory Meeks from Queens, and State Democratic Party Chair Jay Jacobs showed their support for Suozzi, talking about his record of fighting for his constituents and safeguarding the suburban way of life on Long Island and Queens. As Politico notes, Suozzi represented the district for 3 terms before leaving Congress to run against New York Governor Kathy Hochul in the 2022 gubernatorial primary. During that race, one of the policies Suozzi supported was Florida's Parental Rights in Education Act, commonly known as Don't Say Gay. During a 2022 appearance on WABC's Bernie and Sid in the Morning, Suozzi described the anti-LGBTQ+ law as reasonable. New York GOP leaders are yet to announce their pick for Santos' seat. This is a challenging story being from New York, but I get the Democrats. I don't endorse it, I don't condone it, but I get what the Democrats strategically are doing. They're trying to win seats, and that district is it's a traditionally Republican seat, and they need a Democrat that's a little bit more conservative. And Suozzi represents that, and he formerly represented that district as well. I don't support it, not at all, but I get the strategic positioning that the Democrats have had to do here. And Gregory Meeks, I've known him back when I was a younger person. I did some campaigning for him, and I know that he is one that is very inclusive, very supportive of the LGBTQ community. So I know it had to be very strategic on his part. This was not a decision that he feels great about, to be frank with you. I doubt that he feels great about this decision, but strategically, to position the Democrats to take over the House again, I think that they had to do this. It's unfortunate, though.
I think we have to remember, too, that the original Don't Say Gay bill was targeted against things in K through 3. Again, not to agree with the bill in itself, but the original bill and the intent of it, if you just read it, it sounded very innocuous because we thought, we're not teaching about sexuality in K through 3. We're not talking about sexuality in K through 3. So for him to say, which could be a comment to, again, garner some support from more conservative voters to say the bill sounds reasonable. It does sound reasonable in its context, but in its execution in Florida, it was much worse. So I don't think we should conflate the execution of the bill with the actual language of the bill, which was very general in its nature, which was designed that way on purpose so that they could really get into our schools and then try to expand upon it. So and again, I think it's more important that we do try to flip the seat because we can use every vote we can get on the Democratic side.
But you do have to wonder in that constituency, that suburban constituency in Long Island and Queens, are there gay people there, and how do they feel?
Yeah,
how do
there are.
how do they feel about this?
Oh, yeah.
This guy was supporting that. I mean,
I lived on Long Island for a little while and worked at 2 universities.
You are so brave to admit that.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm a very diverse person. Culturally competent. But I lived on Long Island. There's lots of gay people on Long Island. I think they get it though. I think New Yorkers get the politics behind it.
Okay.
And I think gay New Yorkers in particular get the politics here. And I think, Suozzi, when you look at his record beyond him saying that this is reasonable, he tends to be a very pro-gay legislator, right? And so I think that the gays will support him despite what he said about this comment. And I think going back to what Jeff said, perhaps on the surface, he said it was reasonable because it sounded reasonable, but again, the implementation of the policy is very different.
Exactly.
Just one thing I'll say, to your point earlier, that the Dems have a strategy. Do New York Dems have a strategy? Because the way they redrew their districts in this last round after the census, my God, we might actually still have a Democratic House if they had been able to put their districts just the right way, especially with all the nonsense that Republicans have. So you're saying your friends have a strategy. I'll believe you because I like you, but I just don't get it. But that's just my comment.